Dear viewers, Drishti IAS welcomes you to the new series of Simplified. Today's topic of discussion is constitutional developments in India during British rule. The dimensions we are going to cover are constitutional developments in India during company rule, development of representative government in India, and development of the responsible government. So moving on to the first part, that is constitutional developments in India during company rule. It started from Regulating Act of 1773. This marked the beginning of control of British Parliament over East India Company. Governor of Bengal became the Governor General of Bengal, and the first Governor General of Bengal was Warren Hastings. The Bombay and Madras Presidency were made subordinate to the Bengal Presidency in some cases. Establishment of the Supreme Court in Calcutta in 1774. The Supreme Court was comprised of one Chief Justice and 3 assistant judges. The Act prohibited the servants of the company from engaging in any private trade or accepting presents or bribes from the natives. An executive council of 4 members was created to assist the Governor General, and the executive council had the right to make law. Now next is Pitt's India Act of 1784. Pitt's India Act of 1784 rectified the defects of the Regulating Act of 1773. The Pitt's India Act made the company directly subordinate to the British government. The Act established a Board of Control consisting of 6 commissioners, including 2 cabinet ministers. For the first time, the territories of East India Company were called as the British possessions in India. The working domain of the Board of Control was civil, military and revenue. And the working domain of the Court of Directors was commercial activities. Political affairs were managed by the Board of Control, while commercial affairs were managed by the Court of Directors. So it established a system of double government. The Governor General's Council was reduced from 4 members to 3 members, and the governors of Madras and Bombay were made completely subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal. Now next is Charter Act of 1813. The company's rule was extended to another 20 years. Their trade monopoly of EIC was ended, except for the trade in tea, opium and with China. Company's territories in India came under the sovereignty of the British Crown. The company was mandated to spend 1 lakh per annum for education from the income of the company. The local government was authorized to impose taxes on people. Next is Charter Act of 1833. In this, Governor General of Bengal was made Governor General of India, and the first Governor General of India was Lord William Bentinck. EIC became merely an administrative body. Indian territories were to be administered in the name of the British Emperor. India's first Law Commission was set up under the Act, and Lord Macaulay was made its chairman. This Act mandated that Indians should be treated equally in appointment to any post under the company, and slavery was declared illegal in India. Now next is Charter Act of 1853. For the first time, the legislative and executive functions of the Governor General's Council were separated. It provided for the addition of 6 new members called legislative councillors to the council. It introduced an open competition system of selection and recruitment of civil servants. The convenient civil service was thus thrown upon to the Indians also. The Act extended the company's rule for an indefinite period. Since it did not mention any particular period, the British Parliament could take over the company's rule in India at any time. It introduced for the first time local representation in the Indian Central Legislative Council. Now next is Government of India Act of 1858. The Government of India Act of 1858 brought an end to the rule of East India Company. The powers were transferred to the British Crown. Governor General of India was made Viceroy of India, and first Viceroy of India was Lord Canning. Viceroy was the direct representative of the British Crown in India. It ended the system of double government by abolishing the Board of Control and Court of Directors. A new office, Secretary of State for India, was created. A 15-member Council of India was set up to assist the Secretary of State for India, and maximum age of entry into the civil service was gradually reduced from 23 in 1859 to 19 in 1878. Now next part is development of representative government in India. Under this dimension, let's see Indian Councils Act of 1861. The Act added a fifth member to the Viceroy's Executive Council, a jurist. It marked the beginning of portfolio system and establishment of new legislative councils in Bengal, northwestern provinces and Punjab. It led to the expansion of Executive Council for law-making in the centre. Nomination of additional members in the Executive Council, nomination of additional 6 to 12 members. Legislative powers to the Bombay and Madras presidencies were restored. Viceroy got the power to issue ordinances. Now next is Indian Councils Act of 1892. In this, additional members in the Central Legislative Council were added. That is, minimum was 10 and maximum was 16. Members in the Executive Council of Viceroy was 6. Use of election for the first time, although the word election was not used. It increased the functions of legislative councils and gave them the power of discussing the budget and addressing questions to the executive. Next is Indian Councils Act of 1909. This act is also known as Marley-Minto Reforms, in which Lord Marley was Secretary of State and Lord Minto was Viceroy of India. Indians were allowed in the Executive Council of the Viceroy. First Indian to join the Viceroy's Executive Council was Satyendra Prasad Sinha. The concept of a separate electorate for Muslims was introduced, and the members of legislative councils at both levels, that is centre and provinces, were allowed to ask supplementary questions. They also could move a resolution on the budget. Now last dimension, that is development of the responsible government. Under this dimension we will see Government of India Act of 1919. It is also known as Montagu-Chelmsford Reforms. The sole purpose of this act was to ensure Indians of their representation in the government. There was diarchy in provinces. Provincial subjects were divided into two parts, that is, transferred subjects and reserved subjects. Bicameralism at centre in two houses, that is, Council of States, that is upper house, and Central Legislative Assembly, that is lower house. Separate electorates for Sikhs, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians and Europeans. For the first time, there was responsible government in provinces. Also, direct elections were conducted for the first time. Women were given the right to vote, provision for establishment of a Public Service Commission, and a Central Public Service Commission was set up in 1926 for recruiting civil servants. Right to vote was given to a limited number of people on the basis of property, tax or education. Now next is Government of India Act of 1935. It provided for the establishment of an All India Federation consisting of provinces and princely states as units. It abolished diarchy in provinces and introduced provincial autonomy in its place. Introduction of diarchy at the centre federal subjects were divided into reserved subjects and transferred subjects. It abolished the Council of India established by the Government of India Act of 1858. Extension of the principle of communal representation by providing separate electorates for depressed classes, that is scheduled classes, women and labor, that is workers. Burma or Myanmar was separated from India, and the concept of division of powers between the center and state was: in federal list there were 59 subjects, state list there were 54 subjects, and in concurrent list there were 36 subjects. In this, the residuary powers were given to the Viceroy, and there was provision for the establishment of a federal court, provision for the establishment of a Reserve Bank of India, and provision for the establishment of a Federal Public Service Commission at central level, at provincial level, a Provincial Public Service Commission, and Joint Public Service Commission for 2 or more provinces. Now last is Indian Independence Act of 1947. It enabled the representatives of India and Pakistan to frame their own constitutions. It finished British rule in India. It declared India as an independent and sovereign state from August 15, 1947. It provided for the partition of India and the establishment of 2 independent dominions, that is, India and Pakistan. Both independent dominions were given the right to secede from the British Commonwealth. The office of the Secretary of State for India was abolished, and his functions were transferred to the Secretary of State for Commonwealth Affairs. And British paramountcy over the Indian princely states was ended. So that's all for today. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks for watching.